Hello, welcome to another segment of Chevy's Corner. I'm here with Kyle Adler, and tell me a little bit about yourself, Kyle. I've been seeing your content here, and one of your big things is training through trauma. But a lot of people that don't know you and don't know what you're about, give us a little
Yeah.
introduction here about yourself, where you're from, your education, your certs, and basically what you're about.
Yeah. Thanks, Chevy. First off, thanks for having me on here. But absolutely, yeah. My name's Kyle Adler. I was born in Chile, so 1989. Born in Chile. Later, a few years later after that, was brought into Chicago. So grew up from age 1 to 14 in Chicago, in a suburb, North Barrington, so a suburb of northwest suburb of Chicago. Like a lot of Midwest people, moved to Arizona. My parents and all them wanted to escape the cold, so moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, about 2004. Spent the rest of my high school years in Scottsdale. Went to Desert Mountain High School. Before that, Notre Dame. Was on a private school stint for a while. We'll talk about education later, but yeah, private school, and then ventured into public school for my last 2 years. So that was a very unique experience going from private to public. But after high school, continued my swimming career, joined the military. 4 years after that, graduated, went off into the workforce, right? Trying to be a productive person of the society, right? So 7 years after that, started coaching. But through all that, I really do believe it all gave me every tool and every skill I needed to be a good, successful coach from the beginning. And then my wants, my whys, right, are what keep me going. So yeah, 31 right now, birthday September 14th. So almost there. But yeah, 31, just hit 30. Knees are starting to go. Weightlifting starting to get a little bit harder. But waiting for, got another 4 years, 3.5, and then I can hit masters, and then I can start taking it easy a little bit, knowing that you guys that have been killing it since, when your kids are starting to kind of get out a little bit. So that's my why for still wanting to wait or still continuing to compete myself, is I got 3 more years, and then a lot of you big heavy lifters are going to be out doing something else, and I can come in and take over a little bit. So, but yeah, that's a little bit about me. Again, just appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Love it. Can't wait to chat again. Been following you for a while. It's one of the great things and why about weightlifting is being able to travel, and that's one of my goals too, is to go from state to state or just go and visit people and live. Right, it's just the community of sport. So being able to meet you like this, maybe one day we can go and I can come and visit you, and you come here and we can come throw the barbell around.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. Maybe you can come down to Cal Strength and get a little session with us, and
Oh yeah.
appreciate the support. And honestly, this opportunity also allows me to talk with other professionals in the field of coaching that
Yeah.
have a interesting story to tell. And for me, this opportunity right now is me learning about your story. Hopefully, your story and your why is able to inspire other people that might be going through a similar situation as you
Yeah.
may have had in your own past, or something that you have, found that it works for you that maybe someone hasn't really thought of, and is
Yeah.
now, a potential way of guiding them through maybe listening to this podcast. So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
thank you for taking out of your time to share some of your experience and sharing some of your wisdom. And, you know, let's go ahead and get started. What is your why? Like, answer me that. What is your
Yeah.
why right now?
Yeah. So, man, so like my why is always, it's not always changing, but my whys, they tend to fluctuate, just because, just like the body can plateau, just like the mind can plateau. So I always want to keep my whys in check, but ultimately my main why and what I do is, again, helping people. The biggest thing just comes from, I had a unique trauma, growing up. My adoption story, from Chile, is a little bit different from most other adoption stories. But coming from a traumatic event at age 1, and then learning about it later on in life, it really taught me to realize that trauma, whether or not you know it from birth, or know it from when it happens, or whether you figure it out later, it doesn't define you, right? I let it define me, right? I let excuses define me, right? And I let being a victim define me, because on paper, looking at a traumatic event, we have every right to be a victim, right? But we also need to know that we can rise above that role, and we can become greater, we can become better, right? And sometimes, some goals that we have can change, like couch to marathon. You get up, you start running, maybe after a few months of doing that training, you realize a marathon is too small of a goal, right? I want to do a Spartan race, right? Or I want to do an Ironman, right? So whatever gets you out of bed, right? That's the first thing, right? And that's, again, I think, for us, it's just, going through our traumatic event, but also just becoming aware of it and acknowledging it.
Yeah.
But
so just for the people that kind of don't know, without really going into detail with unnecessary details that might make you uncomfortable, is this traumatic event related to the people that adopted you, or is it the traumatic event is related to you moving from Chile to the United States and that process and everything that came with that? Like, if it's something that can be shared without it being too dark, then I'd love to talk about it. If it's something that you kind of would like to just keep to yourself, then I'll totally respect that. Just wanted to like really, if it's something that we can talk about so that people can understand you and your why better, and how, the process that you had to go through to accept, move on, and become the person that you are now.
Yeah. So, I mean, not to bring some context to some history. Chile, one of the long, thin country in South America. We all heard of it. We all know it, just again by that long, thin country. But what we do not know, or what a lot of people do not know, is from, I want to say 60s, like 1960s to early 90s, it was run by one of the worst dictators ever. So Augusto Pinochet, at the end of his term, at the end of his dictatorship, he was really just basically grasping at straws, to basically fund a campaign to basically keep himself in power. One thing he figured out he could do was he could take children from hospitals, from daycares, and he could then sell them through the adoption network, the adoption agencies at the time. And being there was late 80s, early 90s, there's no internet, right? There's no database. There's really nothing to stop somebody from doing that. Because let's be honest for a minute, adoption is basically, you can't buy and sell children. You basically you're paying for someone to help you in the services to be able to mitigate legalities and laws, to be able to bring someone from another country and give them an identity in whatever country you're trying to bring them into. So you're paying for a service.
That's pretty deep. I don't know much about adoption. I don't understand the process much, but that was pretty deep what you just said. We're buying a service. That's
I mean, it is when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because again, like you can't pay for kids. It is very deep, but that's again where he kind of skirted the law, or kind of skirted whatever law he perceived that he was above.
Yeah.
But anyway, so my mother was 15 when she had me. She already had a son. So I have an older brother. Her sister was taking care of him, couldn't take care of me as well. So she had to use a daycare. So the story from what I learned later on, when I found my birth parents, when I found my mother, was that she dropped me off at daycare one day and then went to pick me up, and I wasn't there. So 1989, 1990, I get funneled through some adoption agencies out of Florida, and my parents, both white parents out of Chicago, ended up adopting me.
Okay.
So most of the trauma comes from being adopted taken, being stolen, taken from my mother, who was expecting to see me again. Me too. Another part of the trauma is going into a family that wasn't necessarily ready to have a kid.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different expectations. Parenting is hard, right? The biggest thing I've gathered from being adopted into a family is we got to give our parents some slack, right? They're doing the best they can with the information they have at hand, right? That's what I learned, right? That's what I learned, and that's what I want to teach to my children whenever I have them. I want them to be able to look at me and my parenting and be able to say, right or wrong, right, supportive or not, he did the best he could with the knowledge he had, right? And that's kind of the same thing with coaching, right? We're doing the best we can with the knowledge we have at hand. Sometimes things change, right? Sometimes new information comes out, right? We used to ice our knees, we used to ice our joints, and now they're saying, it's not that good, right? It gets you through. It gets you through the game, right? Because it numbs it, but icing doesn't really do anything. So, that's what I want to, put down too. Is just
To me, and that's the whole icing thing. Now that you're mentioning it,
yeah,
I've been an athlete for 10 years, and I do feel it helps out with the knee pain. Like, it does help out when your knees are swollen, and taking a cold bath, or you going out to the beach when it's really cold and getting that CNS restart.
sure.
Once you get into you dump your whole body and head in cold water. I do feel some benefits with that, but I do know that science says otherwise. It's placebo effect, but I do enjoy it.
My take on that is that, again, it's the why. So what are we trying to do, right? So when we see athletes do it,
Make us feel better.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is Kobe, LeBron, they have to get through a basketball game, regardless of whether or not their knee is going to be torn after or their knee is going to heal fine. Yeah. So we look at it and we see it's the why is the ends justify the means, right? We're going to ice the joint. We're going to keep it numb, make it feel good just so you can finish the game. Afterwards, we'll fix it. We'll see if there's an underlying issue. Yeah. And that's what I think people don't realize too, is that at the end of that, you can still ice your knees. You can still ice your joints. Just figure out what the underlying issue is. Right. And that's, again, that carries over into so many different issues in life, as we mask things with Band-Aids and we don't ever figure out what the underlying issue is. So we're just asking for it to happen again. Right. Injury, injury is 70%, just a pattern of bad habits. And then that one wrong step and you tear your ACL. Right. It's very seldom you get side tackle in soccer, or, the barbell comes down on you and, something. Very rarely is it acute, right? Is it actually something that happens in the here and now and causes it to snap? Mm-hmm. It's going to be, again, a pattern of bad habits that slowly wears down the body. The body's freaking resilient. It's tough. You can throw people. Again, you see it every day. You go into the gym. People are throwing 300-400 pounds.
Oh yeah,
on their shoulders.
My body's been wanting to quit for a while, but I just don't let it.
Yeah, so
I've gone through a couple of injuries that people would say, you're pretty much done. There's no coming back from this one, and I've come back. I don't know how, but I'm doing it, and I'll probably pay for it later on in life with arthritis and all of my joints being terribly suffered from all the stuff that I've had to put myself through. But it is what it is, and it's a suffering.
But you're happy though.
Process.
But that's the thing is, you're happy
to go through.
Yeah, you're having fun. Yeah. You're happy, right? There's a flow state to training. There's a flow state to life, right? Yeah. We don't want to be dumping cortisol in our system all the time, right? So we don't want to be sitting there stressed and anxious. So I think there is something to be said for a little bit of, it's not being naive, but it's kind of like ignorance is bliss. The body knows what to do because you've done a snatch 1,000 million times, right? So you can sit there in a little bit of bliss, knowing that you can push the weight a little bit more, knowing that the body can catch and the body can pull under, that you've done enough. So I think that, again, that's part of training, is getting in the reps, getting in, just knowing that your body, trusting the body. Yeah. Because you want to do that sport for as long as you can. Yeah. Right. And that's what I'm trying to bring in my coaching to now is, I coach bodybuilders. I have a few bodybuilders that are going into shows this season. Men and females. I have a couple of power lifters that have a couple meets coming up in the next 2 to 3 months. Yeah. I have 2 weightlifters, so 2 Olympic weightlifters. No competitions for them yet. I'll talk about them more too. It's just because my goals for weightlifting are a little bit more on the front burner now. So I'm coaching the other sports just so my weightlifting athletes don't ever see me as trying to, again, be on a pedestal above them. Because that's the one thing too, is there's no room on a pedestal for an athlete and a coach. It's all there. It's all their hard work.
Okay, that is an interesting point. I don't necessarily say that I can agree entirely with that. I think that your success breeds success as an individual. If you are, besides what our education might say, or our certificates might say, or our experience might say. But then again, experience comes from accomplishing certain things. And if I am an athlete, Olympic weightlifting athlete that has accomplished representing the United States, and I have guided other people to reach that level as well, I think that also helps your reputation. It doesn't necessarily mean that an athlete, because he's a good athlete, he's going to be a good coach. But what I'm saying is, being a good athlete doesn't make you less of a good coach. And just because you are a good athlete doesn't mean that you can't coach people that want to follow in your footsteps. Again, it's about mentorship, and it's about people. When people come to you for advice and for coaching, they want to do something that you know how to do. And if you're currently doing it at a high level, then not only do they know that you know how to do it, they respect you for it, they admire you for it, and they want to follow in your footsteps. They see you as a role model.
Yeah.
That's my pitch.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that kind of breathes into like motivation versus inspiration in my book. I can always inspire somebody, right? I can lift, and I can try to win meets, and I can try to improve my total, and that will inspire somebody. Excuse me. But I can never motivate somebody, right? That comes internally, like that comes from their drive, right? Their ego, right? There's lots of athletes that have an ego, and we want it, right? We want, like, if you're trying to be best in the world, you need to go into that gym knowing that you're best in the world, right? And you got to train like that. So we got to breed egos, right? Man, excuse me. But yeah, it's motivation versus inspiration, right? So I agree. Like, they want a coach that can perform. They want a coach that knows what they're doing, because it shows that they can at least stick the process. Excuse me. But, again, I think it's just what I was trying to make that point was that I'm always going to be here inspiring you, right? From not from afar, but I'm here inspiring you. But with the tools I can give you through training, through trauma, through, barbell work, through aesthetic work, through an endurance work, through whatever it is, right? We can give them the power that they can motivate themselves, right? That they have that internal desire, that internal flame. Because again, I always try to teach people, like, especially with weightlifting and bodybuilding, we have to stop, I say things definitively sometimes, but they aren't as definitive. But at a certain point when you're competing against somebody, like, let's just say, for example, it's like, I'm 96 kilos. I weigh between either 89 or 96 when I compete. I had to make a point for myself. I can look at the 96 kilo lifters across the world and I can be a fanboy, right? Yeah. But at some point mentally, I have to realize their competition. Mm-hmm. Whether or not I'm 600 places behind them, they're still competition, right? So I have to look at them through a different lens. Yeah. Right. I have to look at, and we're not in the same weight class, but if we were, right, that's why I like weightlifting.
You don't know. You don't know what I'm about.
I know you posted about your weight. So, I don't know what you're about. Like, you're probably high 70s, maybe low 80s. I don't know how, yeah, but that's the big deal. That's the benefit is, like, I can fanboy, right? I can be like, man, like this, but I also have to look at it and be like, all right, I can put in the work. I can move the needle, or I can get a little bit better. Right. So, yeah, absolutely. There's room for a coach on the podium. Right. But it's, again, I'm always about uplifting the athlete. Right. Because, again, this is maybe my downfall from the business side is I tell my athletes, I'm like, I know athletes are not going to have one coach forever. Right. Yeah. As much as I want to believe that someone's going to pad my pocket, right, that someone's going to buy into what I have to coach and what I have to say. There's going to be some people that it just sometimes it goes the life of what it can go. Right. And I have to be okay with that. I have to know that I gave them enough tools where now they can select a better coach for what they need. Right. So sometimes taking the ego out of the equation sometimes works too.
You're just being open-minded.
Yeah. There's plenty to learn from you. There's plenty to learn from just like what Seb's doing with Weightlifting House with Coaches Only. Like, there's that, but there's thousands of us out there. Right. We just haven't made our voices.
Are you a part of that program, the Coaches Only program from Zeb?
I am not. I haven't. Again, I've put some of my coaching goals on the back burner to help myself build a gym. Right. So I had a barbell club, or I have a barbell club, and I had a garage gym during COVID, but with a divorce, I lost the space. So now I'm trying to find commercial space. So I've seen it, again, I need, my coach, I have,
Divorce, the
yeah,
worst word spoken out of any
I
man
know.
ever.
And it
And the
was COVID
trauma and
too. So
trauma that
I
causes
know.
divorce, right? Since we were talking
Right.
about training through
I mean,
trauma, um, we can talk about your
absolutely.
divorce later if you
Yeah.
want to like say,
Well, no, a
anything
snippet.
positive that has
Yeah.
come out of light because of that. I've been reading this book called The Unplugged Alpha. And I
Okay.
also read this other book by Greg Adams called The Free Agent Lifestyle, that speak very against marriage. I'm just gonna put it that
Yeah.
way,
Okay.
respectfully, to keep things into perspective. Um, and it's a crazy thing, right? We can talk about it a little later on, but I kind of just want to say this one thing is that one of the biggest things that for us is important as we're growing up is becoming the best version of ourselves so that we can attract someone
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
appreciates us as men, right? and
Yeah.
and to develop that framework that can be appreciated, that then we can have that relationship and then have a family, get married, have kids. It doesn't work sometimes, and
Yeah.
for some reason here in the United States it's just not working. And it's curious, there's a lot of different
Oh
perspectives
yeah.
to why
Oh
marriage
yeah.
isn't working here in the United States. And I'm trying to figure out why that is before I get involved into
Yeah.
getting married. And
I mean, just like why in
yeah,
athletes, why in
the why.
sports.
Why are
Yeah.
things not working?
Yeah. But also, like, why are you looking for the things you're looking for in a relationship, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
what traumatized you as a kid, money wise? Like, did you have frugal parents? Did you have parents that had no money? So that often might show up in someone that kind of wants to find a rescuer, right? Someone who didn't have things growing up, they're going to tend to attract people that have the means, or partners that have the means, but they're trying to fulfill a void on their end. Like, and that was kind of an interesting fact with my relationship, was that
Okay.
I had a need to be filled, right? It was a traumatic event coming from my upbringing, right? So I had a little bit more of a frugal family, but to me, I matched up with my ex-wife, who was a gift giver, right? Her love language was giving gifts, right? And those two just don't match up very well, because they'll tend to come with strings and I'll tend to come with baggage, right? So it's, yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's, you got to find the best path. But yeah, I mean, it's the why, like money, right? Money, sex, drugs. I mean, it's those few things are going to be the biggest thing. Again, they what do they say? The biggest thing is finances, right? Couples that don't share finances, that aren't honest about finances, right? It's, that's what they say is the biggest thing. I mean, I can see a little bit of it, but yeah, I mean, it's a huge why. And again, just a quirk about bodybuilding, they say breakups breed the best physiques, right? That's because, again, why would you, if you have to go home to your ex, or you have to go home to your empty house, right? You're not going to do that. You're going to spend another hour in the gym. You're going to kill yourself. So yeah, like
Yeah.
it's a big joke. It's a big joke, like through, or like just an anecdote, but through bodybuilding, it's,
Yeah.
you can tell when someone's coming in really peeled. They're like, did they break up with somebody or what?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
again, it's
it also comes from the mentality, right? Because there's a lot of studies, and I have experienced it myself, that breakups just put me in a really bad emotionally mental state where
yeah.
I kind of don't want to eat much. I don't want to train a
Oh yeah.
lot. I don't feel as motivated to do the things that I need to get done for myself. And I kind of lose focus. And, you know, that also comes into play and is like, all right, well, there's some goals that I need to accomplish. And this relationship isn't really helping out with that. Right. And the book that I was reading that was telling you about, The Unplugged Alpha, it's by Richard Cooper. Maybe you should give it a read.
Okay.
If you want to. It's not
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
important, but it's whatever. I'm gonna do a review on it, so maybe you can
Okay.
listen to
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
and check it out. But yeah,
Or we can do
so
another podcast and talk about it.
yeah, that's perfect. I'm gonna do a video review on it so you can check it out later. And
Yeah.
everybody that's watching this interview right now, by the time that this is posted, that'll be posted as well. So make sure to check it
Yeah.
out. Um, But one of the things that he talks about in his book related to what we're just saying is the framework of an individual, and that we should never allow a female to be the focus and drive of our lives, in which it should be our purpose.
Sure.
And that it really speaks so much to me because when you have so much like that is something that I have come like that is something that I've done throughout my entire life. Like I've had a lot of relationships, and every time that I break up with someone, it's literally because of weightlifting, and it's literally
Yeah.
because I'm about to leave. I left Puerto Rico. I left the girl that I was with for 3 years. I left Tennessee. I was with a girl that I was with for like 8 months. And when things aren't working in a relationship, or when I have to make a big decision, life decision, I cut a person out. Like, look, this isn't working out. The distance isn't going to work out. Like, my career as a weightlifter is number one priority
Yeah.
today, tomorrow, and until I'm done. And
Yeah.
if you're not helping me be better at weightlifting,
Yeah.
like, then you're not good for me. Right.
If you're not bringing value to my life, why do I want
Yeah.
you in it?
Yeah.
Right.
Because, as men and as givers that we are, because we try to be as complacent as we can be. And I feel, at least this is me. I don't know how you are, but when I
Yeah.
care about someone and I love them deeply, I try to give them the best version of
Absolutely.
myself as an individual. So, and
I
then
think
kind of like
romantic or
receive,
not, like you have a good friendship, you want to build you know, again, really romantic or not,
yeah,
you're right on the head. We want to be the best version we can.
yeah,
I think where we fall is we do it for as long as we can, and then we just let one thing slip up, and then we just say, all right, well, we'll just go down.
yeah. And so like that's been one of the things that reading that, I'm like, yeah, this resonates with me because it's something that I've done, and it's something that I need to continue doing until my purpose is fulfilled. And
Yeah.
then, he talks also in the book in different ways about value and what measures our own value, how we need to assess our own value as an individual and
Yeah.
what we bring into the table. And he talks all about, a lot of different perspectives, our looks, our physique, our health, our hygiene, our wealth, our income, our jobs, our stability, our mental game, right? All these things
Yeah.
that come into importance, you know, maybe 500 whatever years ago, a lot of these things weren't the same, but
No.
society has
Absolutely.
changed a lot, and technology is constantly evolving. And there's just so things are just changing so rapidly that for us to be able to keep up, we need to relate to other strong men, leaning on each other for support. And I think that and I'm going to bring this back to you, is amazing about your perspective on training through trauma. So let's go back on that. Let's go back on track, and let's
Mhm.
talk on the training through trauma.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit, right? Let's get back on that. Talk to me about
Okay.
training through
Yeah.
trauma. Talk to me about what that means to you. Obviously, you talked a little about already your trauma. How did you allow yourself to not let that define you as an individual, and how are you now using that to drive you?
I mean, shoot, man, Chevy, it's a lot of what you said. So, purpose, having a purpose driven life, right? So that's kind of, it's something that I think we all need to kind of live by. And again, you're living it and embodying it. It's, what is your purpose? What is your why? It's, some people might, just like with your experience with weightlifting and seeing that relationships sometimes won't often be as supportive, but we'll often find sometimes that what we need, other people call selfish, right? So we just need to be aware that sometimes because of our unique trauma, it's okay to be selfish,
Yeah.
right? It's okay to do what has kept us alive, right? And that's is what compartmentalization, right? Being able to keep things aligned within your brain, within your psyche, so that things just don't shut down. Because a lot of us each day, not just one particular traumatic event, but each day go through traumatic events. I had a roommate who was an ER nurse. I'm sure they go through traumatic events daily. I had an ex-girlfriend who was a NICU nurse, so neonatal nurse. So she goes through traumatic events all the time. The biggest thing for me was, I think my individual experience was finding out later, right? Finding out not until I was 25, right? Finding out, that I was not adopted, but yet stolen, right? With my unique way of figuring that out, I was able to live a little bit of a different life, right? A little bit of not a naive life, but a life where I thought I was just adopted. There was,
When did you find that out?
so yeah, so it was 2016, 2017. Yeah, I was 25.
So recently.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out my why, right? I had managed discount tires. I had worked at a physical therapy clinic. I was still figuring out what I wanted to do in life, right? Did I want to climb the corporate ladder, right? Did I want to go back to PT? Did I want to go back to physical therapy, go back to the fitness world? So I felt that I was asking the right questions in life. I was becoming aware of what I wanted to do in life. I wasn't trying to do things for the pleasure of other people. So at that point, I was, at 25, I had a little bit more of an awakening. I had a little bit more of, I had a breakthrough, let's just call it, where I wanted to know more about who I was, right? I finally was aware that there was a hole inside me. I had a hole, from being stolen, right? But I didn't know it. So at that point, when I was finally the most aware of who I was the time that I realized I probably should figure out who I am, figure out more about my background.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a perfect segue in training, training through trauma is becoming aware, right? It's awareness. I use this anecdote pretty often, but not if you don't get X-Men, if you don't get comic books, you won't understand. But for those who do, if you go back and read the comics about Wolverine, right?
Yeah.
Wolverine's able to heal himself, right? He can, that's what people perceive as a superpower. But if you dive deep into it, it's awareness. He has heightened awareness where his cells, his everything that repairs is heightened. It's more aware so that when something happens, a traumatic event happens, he can repair it because he's more aware of it, right? That's why he has a sense of smell that's greater. That's why he has a sense of hearing that's greater. It's because of awareness, right? So I look at that and I say, hey, anecdotally, right? We're not all superheroes, but we can be, right? But if we become aware of what our body's trying to tell us, what our mind's trying to tell us, right? And we just kind of let some of the sounds from outside just kind of flutter away and just see what we're trying to tell ourselves. We can answer a lot of questions. We can maybe see that we need more, that we need to be doing more, right? We need to be a better version of who we are, right? So at 25, I was finally realizing an epiphany that I need to be a better version of who I am.
Yeah. Right.
I have so many skills that I got from the military, that I got from college, that I got from swimming. I had a 12-year swimming career. I was a NIA All-American in the 500. So I got 7th at nationals. I mean, so being at top of my field, top of my, it's kind of ingrained. And then once realizing that I'm no longer that athlete anymore, right? I'm no longer that, not that I'm no longer, but as an ex-athlete, I'm like, man, I'm so far removed from that time that I had that really good race that what am I doing? Right. Again, I'm so competitive. Like, where am I trying to push the needle? So becoming aware of all this helped me kind of realize that I had a trauma. Right. So I had no clue what it was, but I typed it on Facebook. I was like, Chilean birth mom search. Right. So I was just typing in keywords. This lady popped up who was from Chile, who that's what she does, is she helps Chilean children find their birth parents. So she had a connection with the Chilean police department, and I gave her my birth name. So my name's Kyle Adler, right? That's my adopted name.
Yeah.
But my birth name is Marcos Navarrete. Sorry, but yeah, so Marcos Navarrete. So that's my birth name. So that's what I gave her, and I gave her my birth date because being from a third world country, I'm not alienated, but I was nationalized, right? So nationalization versus like an actual citizen, right? So naturalization just means that the governing body of the United States or the state of Illinois agrees that the birth certificate that I had from Chile is authentic, right? Authentic enough for me to get a social, for me to get adopted, right? To me to get under a family, right? So I'm naturalized. But yeah, I mean, so figuring all that out, and then that lady helping me, she helped me for a few weeks while she tried to find just any connections. But I mean, talk about trauma, right? She was the biggest thing that opened my eyes to adoption, but also just being not having your birth family around, is that my mom might not want to meet me, right? I might be a product of rape, right? I might be this traumatic event that reminds her. So that was really eye-opening too, to become aware of that perspective, right? And being a male, I don't necessarily have that perspective, and I'll not ever really have that true perspective. But
Yeah, as males, we can try to be compassionate,
yeah,
and try to understand as much,
yeah,
what
yeah,
that
sympathy
means.
versus empathy, right?
Yeah,
Sympathy is we can sympathize,
yeah,
but I can never empathize because I can never experience it. But yeah, I mean, I was just
yeah, brother,
eye-opening
for
again
sure.
about trauma. But she came back and she's like, well, you know, are you sitting down? She's like, she's like, can we talk? Right. So she told me I was her fifth case, her fifth person. She's helped about 150 people. I was her fifth case of stolen child, or they call us children of silence. So Australia has the children of silence, right? It's basically with the Aborigines, right? It's basically when a state government basically just does horrific things to their indigenous people, right? American Indians have kind of a similar thing, but yeah, she's like, you're my fifth case, and showed me police reports, showed me that the lady got bribed, who was at the daycare, to let someone come in and take kids. So I mean, it's finding that and finding out again, it made so much sense. Again, not that I knew I was stolen, but it's just once I became aware that something was happening, and once I realized that something did, it kind of just, again, an epiphany, a breakthrough just happened. And I was like, on paper, I shouldn't be alive, right? On paper, all these things that's happened to me, right? So many things could have gone wrong in the transportation, in the adoption, in my mental state now. Where am I, am I, I mean, just talk about military still a bit, like suicide, like on paper, all the trauma, right? A lot of us shouldn't be here
Yeah.
because sometimes it can get too much, right? So realizing that at 25, I've experienced the almost extreme amount of trauma that a person can live through being stolen. And I'm realizing that I'm here, I'm okay, right? I'm still breathing, I'm still functioning, right? Once I was able to realize that, that was what jump started me into getting into coaching again. Right. So that was like 7 years ago. I left the PT world. I left a clinic in Scottsdale. But
So
again, it was
I have a question before we go on into
yeah.
training. What about your relationship with your adoptive parents? Are they still around your life? Like, are they still part of your life, or
Um,
you're associated
they're
with them?
yeah. They're not a part of my life by my choice.
Okay.
Again, that just segues into, again, I believe wholeheartedly, I want to teach my kids that at some point, is that we do the best we can. I just don't think that they were ready to. Again, I'm unique. I didn't know until 25 I was stolen, so they didn't have that information in hand when they were trying to raise me. So again, just we butted heads. I was trying to go through my trauma and try to be who I am, and they're born in the 40s. It's very very different generational thing where
Yeah.
a lot of what I say goes right. A lot of, I mean, we both come from Hispanic nations, right?
Yeah.
The fear of Catholicism, that's always affected a lot of Hispanics, right? The fear of God, right? It's
Oh
the
yeah.
fear of elders, the fear of, it's kind of like a fear respect type thing. And it's a very different generational thing, or cultural thing, where they bred just this respect of elders, right? So the relationship I have is very strained because of that. But it did teach me a lot of, again, what I think are good quality skills, which is respect, which is just, again, respecting your elders. I don't think is a bad thing by any means, but
For sure.
again, it's respect is very environmental. So they taught me their version of respect, and again, it just didn't meld well with someone who's going through a unique trauma like me.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing about that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And
And
that happens a lot too, like in foster situations, in adoption situations, where the adults and the kids just won't get along because you know their idea of what fostering a kid might be different from what actually it really is.
yeah.
Or maybe again, the child came from a fatherless family, or a mom that left, right, a single parent home, right, and now they don't know how to deal with a double parent home, right? They just don't know. They're so used to fighting, and that's what trauma gives us. Is it gives us that unique tool to soldier through, to fight through life. But, you know, again, like I was saying earlier, is that once I realized that I didn't have to fight anymore, right? Humans were built to suffer, but it doesn't mean we have to. And I think that that's something that a lot of us don't necessarily embody, right?
Why do you think that we don't have to suffer?
And I and I and I
What
so
process? What process eliminates the suffering?
so what I mean is that,
Where does the suffering end?
yeah, um, I think it's awareness. I think it's self. It's self-bred, right? The suffering comes from us demonizing things that no one else has demonized, right? I never thought I'd look good in a hat for 25 years, and then I threw a hat on, and I'm like, I don't care whether or not people think I look good or not. I think I rock it, right?
Yeah.
It's things that we internalize because we don't know what the public will think, or we don't know what our friends will think, right? It's just, I think, again, I think it's just we have a set of what we perceive as morals, what we perceive as respect, what we perceive as, you know, boundaries, red flags, right? We just don't know. Again, that's what my interpretation of it is. It's just we're keeping ourselves safe.
Yeah. In terms of red flags and what I see as truly the biggest red flag that exists in any person,
Yeah.
is lack of accountability
Uh-huh.
and lack of desire of changing.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the red flag is, as a person isn't accountable for their own behavior, therefore they're lying, they're not being honest, you know, not living in truth, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
being dishonest, lack of accountability, and not being able to recognize that behavior to change it. Whatever is a red flag, it will fall under one of those four categories. And
Yeah.
that's my opinion. And that's kind of like, after reading a couple of books, I'm like, all right, well, this falls under this falls under that, right? And
Yeah.
I think that if a person has trauma like you have had in your life, that's fine. Everybody has trauma. Everybody has their own shit.
Yeah.
How do you address that? All right, but like you said earlier, trauma does not define me. Well, you made that decision.
Yeah.
You made the decision that what you went through, that it isn't going to define you. So as an individual, you made the conscious decision to say, I'm going to be accountable for this. At
Yeah.
25, you said, I'm going to make a big decision in my life to become a better coach so that I can help other people and make a profit. You know,
Yeah.
somewhere down the line, you got married, things didn't work out. It is what it is, but you're gonna find happiness and get married again at some point
Yeah.
again. And I wish you the best on that.
Yeah.
And but for me, red flags, dude, I think that that's just where it's at. I think that when someone doesn't acknowledge that something is wrong with them in their behavior, or they can't acknowledge this, that they need to do something to improve, that is the biggest red flag in an individual.
Yeah.
Because
And,
lack
you
of
know,
accountability
yeah.
is the most terrible thing. And that's just, what do you think?
I mean, accountability is hard because nobody wants to be held accountable for the things that they suck at, let alone the things they think they're good at. Right. With that said, I think, again, there's some fundamental life truths. Like, all of us want to feel heard, right? In every situation in life we go through, we want to feel like someone's listening to us, like we're heard. Right. So, and that I think can creep into everything when it comes to accountability, right? We fight back against people we love because we don't feel like they heard what we were trying to put down. Right. We we do things like, again, like we suffer when we don't have to, right? Let's just say like a family dynamic where I was the caregiver of the family, even though I had two parents, right? So I bring that into a relationship where I say, I know I can suffer because I had to suffer through living through raising my siblings, raising my parents, right? So I know that I can do that in a relationship. So that's what I mean is like, we think we can suffer, or we can suffer. We have the ability to suffer, right? Some families spent 18 years, or some kids spent 18 years raising everybody in the family, right? And sometimes now in their personal relationship, they let that carry off into that. But yes, accountability. That's why we coach, right? That's why we have a service to offer, right? We're not reinventing the wheel here, and how the bicep flexes, right? How the tricep extends. right? I didn't find a new way to get the tricep to extend, or I didn't find a fourth head of the tricep, right? So accountability, right? It's basically just saying like, you have the tools to do it already, right? Here's how we can get everything in a nice, neat package, right? But again, once people can take accountability, they can see whether or not they're living a purpose-driven life. But that's hard. Again, it's just hard. That's where we fight every day. It's just, how do I get my client to take accountability for what they're doing? Exactly. And that's kind of what kind of bring back the podium. It's, I can't take accountability for my athlete and then step on the podium, right? They have to take accountability, right? Whether it's a podium where they're last or where they're first, right? They have to take accountability of that, right? I can take accountability of not giving them the proper care and programming, or not looking at their needs and saying, I have to hold myself accountable for not setting you up for success. They have to hold themselves accountable for not pushing themselves, right? For not tracking their meals, right? For going out and drinking too much. Like, they have to be accountable for that on their own, right? So it's, we got to bring both our worlds together. And that's why coaching is a relationship. It's, we both hold each other accountable, right? If I just have a yes man, or a person just says, yes, 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 you're doing everything great, I don't know whether or not I'm a good coach. If I just have people that like me for how I look and not for what I can do and offer, again, I can't be held accountable. So accountability comes in so many different ways, but that's absolutely correct. Like, people are really afraid to be held accountable. Because they don't want to be told that they're not good at something. Right. You don't want to be told that you need.
It's the ego. It's the ego.
Yeah. I don't want to be told.
People don't want to be told. People don't want to be told that they're not good enough. People don't want to work. And so that's why the training through trauma resonates with me, and your approach, because training through trauma, or at least how I see it, is you are going to suffer. And suffering is inevitable.
Right.
And that's why I was conflicted earlier when you said we don't have to suffer. I was like, well, how to avoid that? How do we avoid trauma?
We want to mitigate it. Suffering. We want to mitigate it, right? We can suffer, and right, but we want. My opinion is, we want to leave all the suffering for the platform, right? That's when you need to grind through that PR lift, right? That's when you need to have. But absolutely. Again, like, we will suffer, but again, I think if it's more like the existential suffering, right? Like, you beating yourself up because you've gone through that sixth girlfriend, but then you realize that you didn't see the red flags, that you didn't hold yourself accountable, right? But then, so it's absolutely. I mean, again, it's training through trauma is, and again, I find it really well. It works with the barbell sports, with the strength sports. It works really well, in my opinion, because just like you've noticed, right? Or just like anybody you've coached noticed, a 50-pound dumbbell is a 50-pound dumbbell, whether or not you woke up and had a great day, or whether or not you woke up and had a bad day. That 50-pound dumbbell is going to be the same thing. That barbell is going to be the same thing. And once you realize that barbell is not changing for you, you have to change for it, right? You have to move yourself around the barbell. You have to learn how to move yourself around life, right? Because life isn't always working against you. It's working with you, right? It's like the old adage when people were, when we were kids, like, oh yeah, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you, right? There's some truth to that. Life isn't happening against you, right? Once we realize that us and life aren't clashing, we're working together, right? That's marriage between barbell and body, right? In my opinion, that's the finesse of the sport, right? Once you know that you can break apart every movement and increase, right? Like, for me, right, part of training through trauma is knowing that the needle always is going to be higher, right? I always have that, I mean, like a rack pull, I can always do more in a rack pull than I can do in a deadlift, right? So that's what gives me that drive to be like, man, like, what am I doing? Like, why is my training not working, right? I need to break apart what I'm doing, or I need to ask my coach, what am I doing wrong, right? Because I can bent over a row 160, like I can do 160 kilos in a bent over row, but yet in my personal development, I'm struggling at a 150 clean and jerk, right? So that's where I think it's, because then the trauma is knowing, for me, the trauma is knowing that I'm better than what I am doing, right? That's a little bit of my trauma daily, is knowing that I can be better. Right. And that's why I think once you acknowledge your trauma and make sure and make it that it doesn't define you, every single day you now have a new set of 24 hours to kind of just reinvent who you are.
Yeah.
Like what Joe Rogan says, like you can be the hero of your own story.
Yeah.
Right. You know, you don't have to let it define you. Right. And that's why I said barbell sports, strength sports, it builds the most connection in my mind. Right. Because again, you have to wake up and you have to know that you have to at least move the needle in some aspect of it. Right. It's not just going to the gym and going on the treadmill. Right. You have to know that I have to do better. Right. Maybe today my full snatch isn't there, or maybe my full deadlift or bench isn't there. But, you know, I did a snatch balance that I at least felt good at. Right. Or I did, you know, a snatch pull that I really was good at. Right. Training through trauma just helps us kind of know that we don't have to get stuck at one thing. Right. We can break apart. We can become aware that the deadlift is not working right now. Right. But what is, right? So what is working out of that deadlift, right? Am I breaking the floor nice? Am I failing at the knee to the hip, right? So, all right, let's look at that. Let's work at what I'm failing at, or let's work at what I'm good at.
Yeah.
Right. You can focus on both your strengths and weaknesses. But once you acknowledge the trauma, until you acknowledge the trauma, until you acknowledge there is trauma, we're very rarely going to want to focus on our weaknesses, right? We're not going to want to be accountable. We're only going to want to focus on what we're good at, right? And that's what I see in the gym. People that haven't held themselves accountable, they'll get into a rut of things that they're good at, right? And we don't get better by just doing things we know we're good at, right? It takes someone to be brave to do something that they're not good at, right? And that's why I'm trying to bring weightlifting into every sport. You know, again, I coach bodybuilding. I have bikini bodybuilding athletes doing overhead squats, doing cleans, right? I have Ironman athletes. I have an Ironman athlete who's her top place finisher is third place. Like she's trying to get to Kona. She's trying to be on an elite level. And she's finally realizing and learning that power mixes with endurance really well. But it's also just the grit, right? You can't just run forever and expect to be really good at running and being able to grit, right? That's where the weight comes in. That's where she can take away and be like, I'm in the last mile of my run, something that I've done every day, but you know, I need to focus on something that will get me a better time, right? I deadlifted 300 pounds, right? Or I cleaned my body weight, or something else that can help give them that inspiration, or like I said earlier, the motivation, right? You've motivated them by inspiring them to do something different, right? And in turn, they can motivate themselves because they've just been taught how to do something different. So training through trauma is so many different aspects, but the biggest thing is just becoming aware of what your body's trying to tell you, right? Realizing that you have a trauma, right? There's something in trauma therapy called EMDR, right? It's basically where a therapist goes through, basically all you're doing is you're trying to talk through your life. You hold on to specific things to have a tactile touch, but you try to remember things in your life. You become aware of it, right? That's a very useful tool for going through trauma therapy, which is just bringing it to the surface, letting it just be there, right? Putting it into the universe and just saying, all right, you know, smite me down, right? It's like one of those things where we demonize ourselves too much, right? We think we're worse than what we are. Like it's like positive affirmations. It's like writing on the mirror, right? You are good enough, or looking at yourself in that mirror and being like, you are good enough.
Yeah.
Right. We are not defined by our trauma. We're defined by the decisions we make every day. Right. And every day I feel that we can make the decision to be a better man, be a better person.
Jordan Peterson talks about this concept of being good enough. And he talks about it on his lectures about we should never say that we're good enough, in the sense that we should always pursue excellence, right? And we should always be like, well, there's this goal that I should be aspiring for, because in the way that he does it, he does it in a very motivating way. I do understand where you're coming from. As like, I am good enough. What you're trying to say is reinforcing this thought process. Like, I am worthy of being loved. I'm worthy of obtaining good results. And, you know, like not letting the negativity and the external factors of life and the trauma influence in your thought process and your own self-value. With that being said, that doesn't take away from the fact that we continue to work on ourselves as individuals to improve our own value. right? So we're
Yeah.
not defined by the
True.
shit that happens to us
Yeah.
or the things that are.
Mm.
Sorry, come on, come here.
You good?
All right,
I had to push my dogs off. They're sleeping.
go little foot.
What up, dude?
That was my roommate. He just got a little foot, which is his dog.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was saying, yeah, we don't allow our trauma or our
Yeah.
life experiences to define us.
Or say that we're good enough.
We are,
always
we
wanna be
are,
good.
we are not defined by that. So having the idea of we are good enough is a good starting point,
Sure.
but it's not the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah. It's kind of like max out days when you test your max out, every 4 weeks, whatever programming is, but every 4 weeks, if that's its programmed, you're allowed to say I'm good enough, right? You're allowed to look at that max out and be like, all right, I'm good enough, right? But, good enough to do what, right? That's where the why comes in, right? Good enough to feel good for that day, or good enough to win a meet at the 109s, or to win the next meet. So again, good enough for your goal for that day on a Saturday, yeah, right? But not good enough to win at 109s at University Nationals, right? So it's, again, absolutely, like, again, a lot of it is like a mixture of life coaching versus again, strength coaching, or like, again, goal, just purpose coaching. It's very individualized. And again, that's what coaching, and that's what, again, trauma helps too. It's once you realize that everyone's unique trauma is there for unique.
Yeah.
We can't just cookie cutter programs, right? And that's what I saw in personal training, right? That's what I see sometimes going on social media. Is just one program worked for one athlete, right? So let's just push it through to everybody else, right? And if the athlete works, right, then I'll take success, right? If it doesn't work for the athlete, I'll say no, they didn't do what I was programmed, right? They didn't do what I said, right? They did it differently, right? So it's, everyone's trauma is unique, everyone's why is unique, right? So that means everyone's coaching should be unique.
Yeah.
Right. Club style might, this club style, they don't always have individualized programming for everyone who comes in the same hours to coach, right? That's just coaching, right? That's just, I can't watch 7 people do a full snatch, right? Or I can't watch 7 people do each individual programming and keep my sanity, right? Like, I'd have to have notes upon notes upon notes. I'd have to have so many different things where you make it a little bit more simple by creating a club type atmosphere where everyone's following similar programming. So basically, if there's any fixes or anything that needs to happen, it can kind of happen at a group level because they're still doing the same exercise. But yeah, I mean, everything's, everyone wants, I don't know, the 12-week boot camp, the 8-week boot camp.
Yeah.
No one wants to put in the work.
The secret. Everybody wants the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Secret recipe, everyone wants to just.
And that's being a results, like you said earlier, that's living, in my opinion, that's living a results driven life versus a purpose driven life, or a process driven life, right? So it's results driven. I just want to see the results in the road. I don't care how you get me there. I just want to see the results.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's the other person who's like, I don't necessarily care where I'm at, but I want to see the process. I want to see how everything's done. Like, I want to know how the body is how the body moves. How I have a unique, there's very different people. And like I said, like, being that purpose driven, that process driven is how we want people to be from now on. Like, I'll speak for myself. I want people to be process driven, to be purpose driven, right? Then that they can help coach themselves. Right. And that's what, again, I say in training through trauma, coaching through trauma, is I'm coaching people to be coaches, right? Whether or not they go get a cert, or whether or not they go coach somebody else, right? But I'm giving them the power. I'm giving them, saying, hey, I'm coaching another coach here, right? I build them up too, right? Because just like we were saying in the beginning, we see someone do impressive things, right? Even if it's someone who's below me, right? They might surpass me. Like, that's an athlete. I mean, as a coach, that's my number one goal, is my number one dream is to have an athlete do better than me, right? Again, I can always build my total. I can always build my physique. But as a coach, I want to coach someone who is better than me.
Yeah. As a coach, I want to set the bar so high first as an athlete, so that whoever surpasses me, I'm going to be really proud of them, right?
So, I mean,
if I coach an athlete to snatch more than me and clean jerk more than me, I'm going to be really, really happy, because it took me a long time and a lot of hard work to get there.
Oh,
So to be
absolutely.
able to have someone to trust me enough to work with me for the amount of years that it took me to get there,
Oh, sure.
that would be a huge accomplishment
But
accomplishment
but
for
here
me.
but
But
here
that's
in
huge
my yeah.
for
No,
me.
no. Let me expand on that. What about, like, again, it took you 7 years. Wouldn't it be even better to know that you could get someone there in 2? Right. I mean, again, I mean, that's the ego, right?
Sauce.
I know, but that's the thing, is that's the ego, right?
Sauce.
Our ego wants to
If
be like,
I
no,
train an athlete
I
and in
know,
two
I
years they're
know.
snatching and clean and jerking what my best ever.
I mean, shit, man. You've seen some of these track guys, right?
Sauce.
Those shot putters, those guys are ridiculous. Like, I saw a
They
shot
are
putter
really strong. They are really
who
strong.
squatted what, 350 for 10. So yeah, maybe not like entry level to snatch, but let's say we took an ex athlete from another sport. But I mean, that's again, that's just me a little bit, is like,
I'm not
because again,
saying
I'm
it's
not,
impossible, but
I know,
man,
but
2
also I'm
years.
not as good as you. I'm not as good as you. So for someone to surpass my 110 or 107 snatch is not that hard, right? For you, it's obviously a bit harder. So again, that's also, again, those segues into like how I coach, right?
Yeah.
I'm never gonna be, in swimming, yeah, like I swam a mile in 16:30, right? I have my All-American in the 500 in 4:40s. It's like I swam butterfly. So I swam 100 butterfly, 100-meter 100-yard butterfly, about 51, 52 seconds, right? We all have that, X thing. But yeah, I mean, I know that I'll never be at a level that some of my athletes will be in, right? I think that's where I'm coming from, that too. And again, that's what helps keep me grounded, is that I don't need to, and then this is just me, I don't need to have that gratitude anymore, right? I don't need to have a comeback, right? I don't need, and again, I'm not making a judgment on anybody else, but this is just me. I don't need to be a 130 snatcher, until I can, start being like, oh, I mean, it's just, I know that knowing how
See
the
that
body
until you
moves,
snatch 130, and then you're gonna be
I
like, I
know.
can't. This is amazing. This is
But
so
then I'll be
heavy. I
30,
put it
then I'll be
over my head.
35. And like every Masters athlete, I'll be like, all right, where's that trend? Where's that? But I mean, it's, I mean, again, I get it. Like, you always, as a coach, we want to always have the upper hand, but it's just, again, I think of it as the growth of the sport of weightlifting in itself.
Yeah.
We have to look at it as, sometimes there's going to be that guy who's just gifted, right? And if we let our ego step in, we might stifle the development of somebody who could be really good.
Of course.
Right. And that's, so again, it's like, it's a fine line. And that's why then, again, why I said weightlifting, I think, or barbell sports, are some of the best sports out there, because it just breeds the best leaders, the best followers, if you have that fine line and you can work it well, because you're constantly developing yourself. And even as an entry level coach, 10 years ago, I had to realize that no matter how big or small I perceive myself, there's somebody who looks up to me. And that blew my mind, right? As soon as I let that sink in and realize that I don't have to have 10,000 followers, I can have 50 followers. But once I know that one person looks up to me, it changed my outlook on what I do, what I say, how I basically walk around, right? And I think a lot of people are so down on themselves that they don't realize that there's somebody out there who looks at what they do and decides to be a better person because of it.
Yeah.
And it could be just something, a funny picture. It could be someone doing snatching. It could be, I did a sledgehammer challenge today where, you hold a sledgehammer out and you try to bend it back and let it touch your face and bring it. So it's just like, no matter what you do in life, right? Somebody's going to look at you and be like, I want to be a better person because of what I saw you do. Right. And that's our dream. That's my dream as a coach. Right.
Yeah.
But I had to realize that it was more obtainable than I thought. I didn't need 100,000 followers, right? I want all that, right? But I didn't need it to feel accomplished, to feel that I have done something.
No.
Right. And that's, again, what training through trauma. That's, being aware of everything. That's,
tell me about your upcoming projects. Kind of like you told me that, and I'm sorry to bring it up again, but you did bring up the point that you got divorced.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to like beat around, a dead horse or whatever. But you said that after that happened, you had a home gym, something happened, and now you're trying to get back on track. So what is the current process that you're at right now? Where are you living? What's where are you working at?
Sure.
Where are you currently coaching? What is what is the next step for you right now? What's that look for?
So, yeah. So, I mean, I got married to a bodybuilder, right? A part of me, again, of what I've personal development is, again, filling voids. I still practice that all the time, but I was looking at, hey, there was someone in the fitness world. Here's me in my fitness world. I looked at I didn't look at red flags, and I just looked at the fact that we were fitness related. And I'm like, all right, we're going to work. Right. So that was my first downfall. It's just looking at things, it's not skin, you're just skin deep. But I had a home gym.
Going back on the red flags, do you think that what I said earlier applies to that situation in terms of being accountable, honesty, and just having the disposition to change those things? Do you think, and this is just me trying to see if my thought process actually has any validity, do you think that would apply in terms of being able to fix whatever was an issue?
I think so on my end. And again, I had to learn a long time ago, or maybe not so long ago, but to speak for myself, becoming more accountable. I would have held myself accountable to some of these standards or red flags, again, I have to hold myself accountable so I can become aware of red flags and then do something about it. It's all about choice, right?
Okay.
Excuse me. It's not a red flag if you choose to be okay with it, right? Like, let's say, like, my partner leaves their clothes on the floor every day, right? I can get mad at it every single day, but I can also be like, you know what? Like, out of the scheme of things that's going to happen in this relationship, picking up a few of their socks every day, it's not worth it. It's not a red flag, right? Red flags can change, right? But I think boundaries are what we fail to set, right? I never kept myself accountable for my boundaries. Right. And my boundaries were, I never, don't be disrespected, right? Don't speak to me in a certain way, right? Always feel that I am listened to, and I always will give you that back too. But I think boundaries and red flags are very often confused, right? Red flags are something that brings awareness to what we want to think about, in my opinion. But then we still have a choice to create a boundary, because a red flag might be something that you don't even know, right? You might just suddenly realize, oh man, this makes me feel funny, but like, I've never experienced it before.
Yeah.
But if you have the thought process and the tools, and you've been coached through how to deal through trauma and things like that, you can realize, like, hey, I still have a choice in this, right? I don't just have to bend over, or I just don't have to let it happen. I can be like, all right, I can be okay with it. I don't have to be okay with it, right? Or I can have a conversation about it, right? And each one of those, like, I could leave the relationship, I can stay in the relationship and talk about it, or I can stay in the relationship and not do anything about it, because I realize that it doesn't have to be a boundary for me. It might have been a red flag when I first saw it, but yeah, absolutely. Like, accountability. If I held myself accountable for some of these boundaries, for some of these things that I needed, I wouldn't have been in the situation when I've been in, right? I wouldn't have probably been married, so I wouldn't have had a divorce, right? So I might have still been with the same woman I was with, right? But maybe we would have been dating for a little longer, or maybe it would have been a different path. But if I would have held myself accountable, I definitely would have been on a different path for where I am right now.
Well, I guess now we can see it from a positive perspective, is that now you do. Now what are some of those red flags that you understand for yourself, that they are no longer like things that you can kind of like deal with. And so when you look for someone to be with in future, to not look for these things. And
it's just like coaching. It's like, watching for the heels lifting, like, or like in your first pull, do your heels come off, right? If you see it enough, right? If you get enough awareness of it, then maybe the next relationship, right? Or the next snatch you'll keep the heels down, right? Or I'll be more accountable to myself.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I think the biggest thing is, just people let things slide, let boundaries slide. But yeah, with that, I had a garage gym, right? I scored 2 Houston 2015 platforms. Had a lucky find then. I had some comp plates. I had about 210 kilos of comp plates. I had 2 squat racks. I had a full setup. And then COVID hit. I realized my divorce, that my wife, a bodybuilder, ex-wife, she'd be gone at 5 a.m, and I wouldn't see her till 8 p.m. I realized come COVID that wasn't a relationship, right? We were just roommates. Right. So at that point, when we had to be forced to be with each other, and again, my coaching business suffered because of COVID, right? So I was at home more. She works for a high level retirement company, so she's essential. So she's working from day, and again, it just bred a lot of just animosity, because I was looked at as someone that wasn't contributing, and she was herself still in like COVID didn't affect her at all. She just
Yeah.
ended up working from home. So it just bred a lot of, we just weren't ready for it. Let's just say that.
We weren't ready for
for
COVID, and COVID just
yeah,
made things worse for sure.
yeah, I mean, we weren't ready to be around each other that long. And again, that's just like red flags, just like you know, being accountable. Now I know that I have to hold myself accountable for a different standard. Like, can I be, not just, be okay with the silence or okay with being apart, but being okay with having 100% just being with each other.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of relationships go through that. They're with work, with life, they're so used to just this habit of not being around each other as much. And then suddenly, COVID hits. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but yeah, I mean, COVID definitely took my business, took what I was doing, and kind of threw the ringer a little bit. But just like being stolen as a kid, stolen as a child, just like any other trauma other people are experiencing.
Right?
It's
trauma, dude.
It's a trauma.
A lot of trauma.
I mean, it
but
gave
hey, you're
me
training
motivation.
through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it gave me motivation. And that's where, again, the separation of inspiration and motivation is like, I was now motivated internally, right? Whether it was, I want to look better, right? Like, I want to look better so that when my ex sees me again, like, I want to be like, like that's motivation, right?
I have a question though.
Revenge bod.
Whenever you get a chance, I want to know about the Houston platforms and the competition weights and everything. What happened with that? This is probably the most traumatic thing that you're about to say that is going to affect me. I'm going to be traumatized.
I'm still dealing with it. So we bought a house right before COVID hit. We bought 2 Jeeps right before COVID hit. Like, so we needed it, right? She needed a new car. Like I've never had a new car, right? So we made it happen, right? Again, she made good money. I was a coach. I worked contract gigs, just coming from paramilitary. I had some good luck with contract gigs here and there, just for side cash. But so I used my debt, my credit card to buy all this gym equipment, right? And because we were together, right? Because we shared, in order to get a good deal on a house, to get a better payment on a house, to get a better interest rate, the debt to income ratio had to be a lot lower. So she basically offered, because she wanted a better deal on the house, because it would be under her name, to take over some of the debt that I had. So, unbeknownst to me, we get divorced, and not unbeknownst to me, but not ever thinking we're going to get split up.
Yeah.
But suddenly now the debt that she took over is now hers, right? So now she took over the plates, she took over the gym, and that's where we're still fighting. It's just one of those things where, and that's again where it's, if I was more set with my boundaries, more set with who I was, maybe we wouldn't be in the situation, because I wouldn't have been a pushover. But this is my life. Like,
it's hard to not be a pushover when you don't have the money to take care of the stuff. And it's not, I'm not trying to like throw you onto the bus or be mean about it. COVID, COVID, you lost your business, you lost your job, like you couldn't do anything about it. You weren't financially as stable as her, but I think that, and this is something that I'm understanding where you're coming from. Like, hey, there were some boundaries here, there were some red flags that, there's some things that I needed to do on my end, but there's a lack of consideration on her end that, sorry if you're watching this, ex of Kyle.
No, I mean,
but we're gonna bring it up because we're talking about trauma, and you traumatized a man. It's one
of those things where, again, like, accountability, right? It's at the end of relationships. I find it way too often as we get into and I'll bring this up too, so remind me, but it's a pissing contest. It is a scorecard of, I did this, this, and this for you. You did this and only this for me. Right. At the end of relationships, we tend to keep track of who did more. And that's where the gym fell into. So again, it's the,
hey man, sorry that happened. Absolutely. Sorry you lost all those plates. This is
I mean, it's one of those things where
thing that I've heard.
Motivation to rebuild, right?
I'm joking about it, obviously,
I know.
Jokes. I'm making jokes. Losing a set of Houston weightlifting platforms and some competition weights.
Both of those.
It just hurts me. It just hurts.
I know. Like, it's one of those things where it's she'll never understand, and I can't expect her to always understand, because I'm a weightlifter.
How long have you been doing weightlifting for? How long? Like, when did you fall in love with the sport? because to
Oh
get
shit.
2015 Houston plates, Houston
Yeah.
platforms, like that's legit.
I've been very lucky in building relationships with people here in Colorado, fellow coaches, just people that have these things. Like it was COVID. I started swiping up everything I could, right?
Yeah.
So it was a funny story. So honestly, there was a coach here in Denver. Her father created DC Blocks, right? So you know DC Blocks, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
her
I've heard of
father,
him. I've heard of him.
yeah. So this coach's father, to the daughter, she had worked for the Olympic Center, and she had gave the Olympic Center some platforms. They lost them, right? So they gave them away. So they're like, here, like we'll offer you these 2015 Alico platforms. So she took them. She listed them on Facebook for sale like 5 years ago, or like 3 years ago. And because of COVID, somehow the algorithm repopped that posting in the Facebook marketplace. So
Okay.
she didn't even want to sell them. So literally she was asking $1,200 for two Alico Houston platforms.
Yeah.
Right. So jumped on it. Right. But it was one of those things where I had to sell that I had a club, that I was going to respect this stuff. And that was just me too. Because I'm like, I wouldn't want just not to dog CrossFit, but I just don't want like a soccer mom CrossFitter getting these Houston Alico platforms and doing,
You want someone
thrusters.
who's going to respect it.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
So I explained it to her, but yeah, it was just by the luck of the draw and by, because again, I do have my own coach too. So
So did she sell them for the original price, or did she?
So it was
upsell them?
1,200. So it was 600 a pop.
Okay. So she still sold them for the same price 3 years later, 5 years later, whatever.
Yeah.
Dude,
but it was
lucky.
The biggest thing was that they just needed the money because COVID hit. So they're like, hey, we might need the money. We'll build platforms, but yeah. And then there's Simpsons Fitness Supply here in Colorado, which is a local one, and there's this meet called Barbells and Brews, which is what they do they do a meet at a brew house. Like they're all over.
I think the one that makes that one happen is Travis Cooper.
Yeah. So Travis Cooper, absolutely, yeah. So yeah,
gotta get him on the podcast sometime. I like that guy. He's cool. He's cool.
Yeah, I reached out to him the other day. He had a thing that wanted me to listen. I can't remember though, but yeah. So I got a pair of comp plates from there. But yeah, that's the one thing is that my ex, again, great things she did. Again, obviously accountability on both ends, right? Yeah. She had her great moments, but it was one of those things she'll never get that. The sentimental value of why I selected all these items for my gym, personally for me outweighs just the debt of saying, here, I need weights, or I want to work out in my gym. Yeah. Like to me, and again, that's the hard part of a relationship though, is mitigating expectations. That's my expectation, right? I can't force that on her. Mm-hmm. But in the end, it's a shitty situation, but for now, right? So right now there's shared gym spaces all over the state, all over the country. So right now I rent space at a shared gym space, and I have my Rogue yoke. I have my squat rack. I have, the plates I've accumulated. I have my bars at this shared gym space. And then with COVID, so now here's the great thing for coaches right out there, like commercial real estate, right? Find a commercial real estate agent. If you have any dream of opening up your own gym, because right now commercial real estate is going for pennies on the dollar, because these spots that used to have people in it, companies are realizing they can go remote. So there's so many contracts or so many buildings that were meant for businesses that are now 100% online. Yeah. So a lot of these real estate or a lot of these owners will take half or 1/3 or 2/3 of what the asking price is, just because they need to make something out of this property that will never get sold again. Right. So that's my goal. And again, like getting divorced, losing all this stuff was a blessing in disguise, because if I would have had the comfort, right, no trauma, right? If I would have had the comfort of my garage gym, I would have got complacent, right? I had nice stuff. I had a Alico platforms. Like I had nice things. I wouldn't want to leave. I wouldn't want to be like, let me try to grow. Yeah. Right. And that's the downfall of trying to grow too responsibly, right? You get too complacent where you're at. When people are like, man, you should be doing bigger and better things. You're like, well, I'm just good here. Right. And that kind of brings up what you said earlier. Like it's not always okay to be good enough. Yeah. Right. As a business, it's absolutely not okay to be good enough. No. Right. Every business we run, we always have to have
self-excellence.
Yeah. We have to have a beat yesterday. Yeah. Right. We have to have what did I do with this day last year? Yeah. Right. Am I better? Right. So again, without the divorce, I wouldn't be looking at real estate, right? Wouldn't be looking to have more equity, more ownership, right? More accountability, right? I'm not just living and working out of my house, right? There's a landlord that I have to be accountable for,
Yeah.
right? I might grow to a point where I have contract workers. I have coaches that come in and pay me to use my equipment and coach, right? I have to hold them accountable, right? They're holding me accountable as a landlord, right? So if I didn't have this trauma of divorce and have this unique experience, I probably wouldn't be at the growth and where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Right. Because I would still be in the mindset where I'm good enough. I have all these great things here. Right. So trauma helps breed so many good things. Once you become aware of it, once you become aware that, again, doesn't define your life.
As a tool. Yeah.
Yes. Once you use it as a tool, and use it at, that again, I'm blessed, right? Again, maybe I would have wished I had different, again, I think that's just a fault in thinking too.
Mm-hmm.
As kids, right, we often will say, hey, I wish, that rich dad over there, like what would it be like if he was my father, right? Yeah. That's such a backwards way to think, because there's no way, if that man, was with your mom, that you would even be, you wouldn't be here, right? Metaphysically, you wouldn't be here, right? But yet there's kids every day that look at a situation because they come from a broken home, because they come from trauma, and they don't have the tools, right? So they just look at it and say, hey, how can I just take myself away from this shitty situation and interject myself into a better situation?
Yeah.
Right. And that often breeds to drugs, right? Because what is the number one tool to get someone out of their shitty situation and into a good situation? To get high, right? That's why a lot of trauma breeds that drug addiction, or breeds any sort of addiction. Because we need that. We need that
to escape your reality.
Yeah.
That is just what it is. I mean, whatever you were addicted to,
yeah,
it is helping you escape the reality that you need to work to be better, right? And that you are using a victim mindset of this happened to me, or I don't have this, or whatever else external factor is contributing to whatever you think is your unhappiness. You're using all like these things to create a wall. Well, this is here, this happened to me, or someone did this to me, someone said this to me, or I'm an injury, or I'm this, and then you create this wall for yourself. When there's people out there that have no limbs, that have they have half an arm, they only have part of the
perspective,
they're missing a leg, and you're out here, sitting back complaining about your life and about how terrible you have it, when there's people out there that have it 10 times worse than you. You're just making excuses, so that instead of standing up and, like you said earlier, like, I'm alive, I can still work, I can still make a living for myself. You didn't let your situation take control over your progress and your development as an individual. And
to bring back something else, it's too, is like, it's a trauma pissing contest. That's why a lot of people
contest.
Yes, we often want to say, like, and I found this out just through my personal experience, because when I first found out about being stolen, I wanted it to be the biggest reason why I failed as who I was, because here's this big defining event that gave me the ultimate excuse to be the ultimate fuck up, right? And I let it happen, right? But I think a lot of us fall into that. It's, again, the underlying life truth, if we all want to be heard, right? So here I am saying I was stolen, my trauma is great, but here someone else is saying I was abused, I was beat as a kid, right? In our conversation, if we can't just get across, or we can't move past my trauma is bigger than yours, or your trauma is less, or just realizing, we have to realize that in our own reality, that trauma is the worst thing that could ever happen. It's not me. It's not my job to judge whether or not my trauma is greater than your trauma, per se. Right? Because then that's what we'll get into, is a trauma pissing contest. Who gets to play the victim the most, right? Me, right? I was stolen. So I perceive my trauma to be greater than a lot of people. Right. And I have to keep that in check too, because again, on paper, it is an extreme trauma. Human trafficking is one of the worst things people can do in this world. right? But yet I can't ever let it
But it could have been
put me on
worse.
a pedestal. Could have been worse.
It could have been worse.
And
Think
that's
about
what
that.
helps
Think
me.
about that too. Think
Yeah.
about that too. You could have not been in the United States. You could have been in a worse place.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying Chile is a worse place,
Well,
but you could have been like in
you're
a worse
absolutely
place.
right.
You know, you could have
And
been
yeah.
not in the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Yeah.
You could have now served in the United States, American,
Yeah.
you know, army, military, you know. It could
Yeah.
have been worse. You could have lost a limb.
And absolutely. And that's
And
again like
these are just
perspective.
things to be, you know, that I'm sure that you think about yourself. You know, I'm not trying to like, you know, make you feel good about yourself. I know that you feel good about
No.
yourself. I know that you're working hard. I know that this trained through trauma, and what you're telling me right now is you understanding this, but it's like, it can always be worse. It can always be worse.
And that's what I tell people at the gym too. I'm like, underlying, like anytime you go in the gym, do anything, it's trauma, right? And that's, again, to swing it back, is training through trauma doesn't always have to mean a traumatic event emotionally.
Yeah.
Going into the gym and doing hypertrophy, during power, during endurance, the body perceives that as trauma.
Yeah.
Right. So we have the tools to mitigate, triage any sort of trauma in our life.
Amen.
Metaphysically, you know, or physically, right? We're going to have the best set of tools to be successful, right? So it's, again, not just can I survive through something that would have killed somebody or would have mentally anguished somebody so much, but it's, can I walk in the gym and do something that my body doesn't want to do, which is tear muscle tissue, right? And then try to regrow it, right? So that alone is trauma. You know, again, it's a spectrum, whether or not it's great. So again, that's why I said, like, you're absolutely right. I have to make sure to remember sometimes that my story isn't the top of the list, right? Because I want to be heard just like everybody else. I'm fighting to get my story out there. Human trafficking, especially for men that aren't in the sex slave, is very uncommon, right? We only usually hear about it. And this is my battle too. There's unique battles in every way. Like I'm trying to reach out to organizations to try to help bring some awareness, or just like organizations that do human trafficking awareness already. And I had one organization tell me that they're putting all their resources towards females in the sex trade, right? And then a few weeks later, they make a post about a male story and about how men's stories deserve to be heard, right? So I look at it as there's still misinformation. There's still a lot of things that are not right within the whole community, right? There's still, you know, again, I don't want to say it in the wrong way, but I'm a 31-year-old male. You know, I'm very much Spanish. You know, I have some. So again, like I'm 41% Native American. So that's either Incan or part of, you know, Mexico, more Mexican Native American. But again, I'm not, you know, a 13 to 17-year-old female who's been sold into sex slavery, which again, on its own is a horrible situation.
It's a very horrible situation.
But, you know, again,
agree with this 100%. Yeah.
But like you said, everybody has to know that there's going to be someone that we might not know about that has a greater trauma.
For sure.
Right. And that's what has to keep me in check, because and again, I'm not sugarcoating it, but I've had a great trauma, and it's very hard for me not to let it take over some things and be like, wait, listen to me more. Right. Because I have this perceived trauma. Yeah. But again, I can't.
I'm going to tell you something that I've read on this book, on the Richard Cooper book. I'm going to find it here real quick. Just because it's like, it's interesting. It's an interesting perspective. It's here towards the end. Here we go. So before I read this, again, this is a Richard Cooper's Unplugged Alpha book where I'm reading this from, and what I'm about to read you is more about our development as individuals, as men, to become strong. And the reason that we do this is because we don't want to be seen. We don't want to be deemed weak or incompetent.
Sure.
Right. And that people don't care about our struggles. And the book talks specifically about women. Women don't care about your struggles. They wait at the finish line. And it says here, they fuck the winners. They're with the winners. And whenever I've read that, you know, it says here, women simply do not get involved with men they see as quitters. They don't care about your struggles. They stay in the finish line and they fuck the winners. It reminds me of the movie Talladega Nights, where Ricky
Yeah.
Bobby loses the win,
Yeah. Oh
the
yeah.
the race, and his best friend ends up marrying his wife.
Yeah.
It literally just applies directly. Like I read that line and I just thought about that, and it's just
Yeah.
like,
That's such, it's so
and
archaic though. It brings me back to like cavemen. Like if your clan didn't survive or didn't have the most kills,
yeah,
I would look at you and be like, all right, I'm gonna go have sex with this leader of this clan who can kill the most. So again, it's like that reptilian brain of us where
yeah.
it's yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, 100%. Um, but I mean, is that something
So
you
with
think
that
that
being said, yeah, with that being said, for me, this is how I approach it. We
yeah,
can either be have the victim mindset, which is talk about our issues and talk about our traumas consistently, or just say like, this happened, so what?
yeah,
I'm still gonna be a badass. I'm still gonna be a winner, and I'm gonna work every single day. And
yeah,
that's what I know that you're trying to give your athletes, and I know that that's your
yeah.
mindset. And I'm glad that we're having this talk right now. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's again, like I'm not just coaching people. Like I want to say I'm coaching coaches. Like
yeah,
again, they could have a 9 to 5 job and they don't have to coach a day in their life. But when they come to me, right, I have such a high standard that I tell, I'm coaching coaches,
yeah,
right? And I have, and even if I am coaching a coach, I have a ridiculous high standard on what they do, right? And that's why I think why weightlifting, with us can breed so much into just personal training, personal development, because you have to have a high standard because that barbell has a high standard. It's called whatever the fucking weight's on the bar,
yeah,
right? That's the standard,
yeah,
right? So, again, that's why, training through all this, again, trauma at the gym, trauma in your life, right? Life has high standards. Life has standards, right? Well, with that said too, is I try to get people to also realize that we can be selfish at times too.
yeah,
We can cause our universe to either expand or contract, right? Tomorrow I can have my universe encompass just me, right? And that's 100% okay. I can walk around tomorrow and do everything that I want to do and not do a single thing for another person,
yeah,
right? And that's okay, regardless of whether I help people every day or not. That's okay. But also, too, people need to know that they can expand their universe to involve anybody, right? And I think that a lot of people don't have that tool. They don't know how to expand their universe and bring people in it, and then also take people out of it,
yeah,
right? So everyone just gets flooded with so much information, right? And then there's social media, right? So we get so flooded, right? So it's my coaching, and I think what a lot of people do as coaches, they just basically sift through all the bullshit that the world has to offer,
yeah,
and they package what they can and what the athlete and client can take and what they can handle without being flooded,
yeah,
right? So we're basically just funnels, right? Us as coaches, we take, because again, I'm not naive, right? I don't ever think that my clients are dumber than me, right? If I see something on Instagram and I'm like, oh, this is cool, they probably might have seen that same video. So I can't be like, oh, hey, I created this exercise, because they're gonna be like, no, you fucking did it. I saw somebody else do it. But they might still stay with you because they know it's a good exercise. So it's like one of those things where, I know that I got to keep up, and because they're going to do the exact same thing. You know, what about your coaching? How long have you been doing? So,
my coaching, it's been up and down because of COVID. Same thing. I had a little bit more clients last year. There was a lot more flow of people coming to Cal Strength. Right now, I'm more involved on online coaching in terms of like video review and analysis. So I have some clients that send me their videos, and some people that they'll pay me to watch them, do some snatches and clean and jerks,
yeah,
and I
sure.
help them out, and that's kind of what I got going on right now. Um, because of my contract with California Strength, I must direct them to our programming. And if they use my code, then I get a percentage of what
Yeah.
the
Okay.
cost is. But that's basically it. Like for me, my coaching is more driven towards helping athletes get
Yeah.
better in snatching, clean and jerk, squatting, improving
Yeah.
their technique, improving their form, and using our programming and Cal Strength to guide that person.
Yeah.
I don't write any
Absolutely.
specific programming for clients online besides trying to get them fit? Like if they're trying to lose weight, or if they're trying to at home workouts with some bands or whatever, like, all right,
Yeah.
cool. I'll write that because it's very specific to what, catering for an individual's needs. But if they're trying to do snatch, clean and jerk, but weightlifting, then I'll direct them to one of our programs, and that's how it works.
Yeah. And that's loyalty then too. Like that's where I think the club works too, is it builds people loyalty to like something bigger than themselves. Like, and that's where I think a lot of coaches don't have this loyalty. Like I've seen so many people go from.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also a responsibility. Like if I am selling weightlifting programming to clients, then I'm gonna get kicked out of Cal Strength. So
that's the contract.
Yeah. Well, there's no contract, it's all by word, but it's.
But you're a loyal person, so you're not going to mess that up, right? Again, it's just like every relationship. It's, does that individual or entity bring value to my life?
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm trying to expand myself as a coach as well. Like, there's other areas in my life that I'm trying to like focus on, and this, having these conversations and trying to put out content to help people out is super important to me. So this is kind of like an opportunity for me to grow in the direction that I want as a coach. And
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Because again, I can see that too. Because again, there's only, I get my just first grasp of it. There's only so many ways people can interpret workout videos, right? How do we bring something else, some content that helps teach people a little bit more, right? We can still go over exercises, but it's, again, I think the fitness world is just flooded with a lot of instructional videos. We need to see people again, like the masks. Like I'm tired of seeing people's just eyes, right? People have gotten good at fake smiling. Like literally people just raise their eyebrows and you'll think they're smiling. Like resting bitch face is now like rampant throughout America because now everybody could just sit there and practice it. So again, like that's where I'm at too. Like I just need to see people's faces. Like I feel
you. I don't want to talk much about COVID because it is very political. And I don't want to get in political talks right now, but COVID has been a very negative thing. There is absolutely nothing positive that comes from COVID. And when you try to look at things that are positive from COVID, you're just trying to be optimistic, man. You're just trying to be a positive individual. You're just be like, you know what? It could have been worse.
It's kind of like,
it's bad. It's bad.
It could have been
worse.
It
could have been worse. I could have died. I could have died from COVID. You didn't though. You're alive, right?
But again, like I want to see people's faces. I want to, again, that's like I get it. But I mean, so you do more remote. So what about your personal lives? What are your goals for weightlifting? What are you trying to do? You trying to increase your total? You got Pan Am's coming up?
Yeah, I got Pan Am's next week. I'm going to be leaving to the Dominican Republic on the 20th, so a week from now, and I'm going to be competing on the 22nd, 23rd, something like that. I don't really know. I'm just focusing on training and recovering and doing what I need to do in terms of my own personal goals. I want to snatch 160, clean and jerk 200, and get a Pan Am medal. And once that happens, I'll know after that if I want to keep doing this or do something over my life. For now, that's what I want. I want a Pan Am medal. I want 160 snatch, and I want a 200 clean and jerk. And then who knows what's going to happen after that, for now, that's my priorities. That's my goals. And so, that's all I got. That's all I got for you.
Yeah. I mean, shit, like mine, I got a meet coming up in May. I got a second meet in Wyoming. I compete locally just because I tried to sign up for the AO1s late, but I was looking at it, I was like, are you serious, Rogue? If you want $375 for late registration for online, I'm like, Jesus.
Hey, USA weightlifting, from a cost and revenue standpoint, doesn't make any money. These are the
is that USA weightlifting or is that Rogue? Oh no, it's not. Is it Rogue or USA
weightlifting's words? So from a cost revenue standpoint, it's not profitable. So that's what you need to understand.
I get it. Trust me. And like every time I pay my dues, I donate on it a little bit. But again, purely personal.
I can't
And
say
again, I was
anything,
the
man.
idiot
I'm
who
part of Team
waited.
USA. I can't say
I
anything.
know.
If I say anything, I'll get in trouble.
I was the
I'm
idiot
just
who
I'm
waited.
just I'm just quoting
Yeah,
Phil Andrews and letting it be, man.
you're
I'm just
good.
letting it be.
You're good. Again, like I said, I know I was the idiot that waited to, I could have signed up early, so again, it was funny, but yeah, yeah,
It's your trauma. It's your fault. You need to be you need to be accountable.
I know I get complacent, and it's part of running your own business. Sometimes you don't have the accountability. Like running your own business is hard because who's going to keep me accountable? Who's going to keep me from wanting to be in this room with my dogs and just doing remote coaching all day and like just watching TV? Like me, right? Or nobody, right? So as coaches to run our own businesses, I think it's, again, we're not above, but it's just we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard because I will get complacent. Absolutely. And I need conversations like this. We just need conversations. The strength sports, anybody in the strength sport, we need to have conversations together, right? And that's again, and kind of closing with what my goal is as a coach, not just training through trauma, but the reason why I have power lifters, I have weightlifters, I have bodybuilders, I have Ironman athletes, and I have all those athletes competing at a high stage, is because again, trauma. There's no balance in sport. Trauma, everybody. But also too is that every sport can benefit, right? Bodybuilders, right?
Let's get to a closing end. Let's give it a 5-minute countdown towards our end. Here it's 11:25. I'm sure it's 12:25 at your time. So let's give it a 5 minutes to kind of close out and end on a good note. And then towards the end, I'm just gonna ask you to give the viewers your social media. So and I end on a good note, kind of.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like I was saying, like that's why again, where's I coach all the sports I coach is because again, all these barbell sports, all these strength sports, all of us need to have conversations together, just like what they're doing with coaches only, just like what we're doing is so much information is compartmentalized, right? What sometimes can be very different from what I know, right? And that's my goal is just not also training through trauma, but teaching people that bodybuilders can learn something from weightlifters, right? Powerlifters can learn something from bodybuilders, right? Nobody can learn anything from CrossFit, right? I'm just kidding. But we all can learn everything from everything. And with the CrossFit thing too, is like I look at it as like you have to know, just like bring back from the military, you have to know what the enemy's doing, right? Don't be afraid of getting a certificate just because you don't want to use it. Get the certificate because you now know what the competition's doing, right? You now know what you need to do to make yourself better than anybody else out there.
Yeah.
Right. And, again, I love CrossFit. It's as far as a purpose to get people in shape. Love it. Being a weightlifting coach, coaching, again, one of the biggest things is trying to be a weightlifting coach and work in a CrossFit gym. I butt heads with, how many times I heard like when I was trying to teach a clean or snatch and they're like, well, what's it say on the front door? And I'm like, what? They're like, CrossFit. They're like, you can't teach weightlifting, do this. You got to teach the CrossFit way. I'm like, God. But I think we all need to have these conversations together. Bodybuilders, weightlifters.
If someone would say that to me, I'd probably flip.
I quit.
I'm happy I work at Cal Strength, and I'm happy that I work with people that trust me enough to never say anything like that. I would probably drop them as a client if they said something like that. But
it was a bad gym to be. Not a bad gym. It's just again I don't know. There's just a lot more on that topic of cult mentality with
again, accountability, right? If they lack accountability and you're trying to tell them that they need to fix their technique and they don't want to listen to it, doesn't really matter, right? Like you're gonna try and put out as an individual and as a coach, you're gonna keep trying to help as people as much as you can. But if they don't want to hear it, all right.
Again, you can only do so much. Yeah, you can only do so much. Like don't halt, don't hinder your personal development just because you feel like you need to be the rescuer because they're the victim, right? Again, it brings back to those roles, right? We as coaches, we often might pick up the rescuer role pretty often, right? Because we see somebody who needs help as a coach, as a person, we want to be like, hey, here I am, I can offer some help, right? So that's my downfall too, is being too loyal, right? Letting people walk over me too much because I am a giver, right? We are givers. Our job, our life right now, as we speak, is to give to people, whether it's content, whether it's knowledge, whether it's inspiration, right? Whether it's just a face to look at, right? We're giving people something, right?
For sure.
It is what it is. Like we're selling ourselves, right? We're every day we got to wake up and, sell ourselves, but be the best version of ourselves, right? Because then then we have nothing to sell, right? If I'm not working to move that needle, why, again, it's not good enough. That's what you said brings in. It's what the book said is just not good enough to be okay, or it's not okay to be good enough.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's talk about let's end on with that. It's not good to be good enough.
No.
Let's end on that.
Always move the needle.
Always move the needle. Always try to be
whether
better.
it's and that's where CrossFit got to write in closing, right? Load, distance, time, exertion, right? Move the needle in each one of those, right?
Yeah.
Right. But in personal development, move the needle in accountability, right? Today I'm holding myself accountable to one more thing that I didn't hold myself accountable to yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to pick up these clothes on the floor, right? I'm going to instead of my laundry sitting in my chair right there, I'm going to actually do it. Right.
Yeah.
Every day I got to move the needle. I got to say, how can I make myself better?
Yeah.
Right. And find new things to do that. But yeah, social media, right? Okay. So, my barbell club, right? So I have a barbell club. It's called Kilo Advantage Barbell Club. And that's kind of what the shirt kind of is, but it's Kyle Adler, right? So business Kyle Adler Coaching, right? Social media, Instagram handles are both Kyle Adler Coaching and Kilo Advantage Barbell Club. And then my personal account, which is just a mix of a little bit of the barbell, a little bit of everything, is the official Coaching Chilean, right? Being from Chile, it's been through a few different names, right? But as my business grew, I realized I couldn't have the funny Instagram names anymore, but had to get a real one. Like it was, and I'll say it, I loved it, but it was the official Chunky Chilean for a while. And then people were like, "You're in good shape. Why are you saying you're chunky?" I'm like, it's just a play on words. It's just one of those things where it went well. But yeah, it's just, the official Coaching Chilean on Instagram. And then
nice. Well, thank you for your time, Kyle. I look forward to seeing some of your athletes, maybe at nationals, maybe you at nationals.
It's in Denver this year. It's in Denver, so that's where I live. I currently live in Denver, Colorado. So anybody who's listening in Denver, Colorado, come. My gym's. I'll anytime I'm there, let me know. Or anytime anybody wants to come in, we'll come lift.
For sure.
But yeah, nationals is in Denver, so maybe I'll be seeing you if you compete at that meet.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. Still pretty early in the year, and I don't even know when nationals is. So I didn't even know it was in December. Perfect.
And Denver's got to pop. In Denver, we have the All-Star game for baseball, and then we got nationals for weightlifting. I don't care that much about baseball, but I hear it's a big deal that the All-Star game's here. So
yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens by the end of the year.
But let's have more conversations like this too. I want to maybe with the book too, it forced me to be accountable to read something, and then I can talk about it with somebody. So
I'll send you the link of a couple of the books that I'm reading, and you can let me know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sound good, Kyle. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate the conversation, and I look forward to seeing more of your content on social media and seeing what you're putting out there, and seeing you help other people training through trauma. And wish you the best. Thank you for your support in my career. I support yours, man, and wish you the best.
Yeah, it was a total pleasure to be on here. Like I said, I hope to do it again. Hope to continue conversations going. We've got plenty to talk about. Well, yeah, let's get you ready. You got to get ready for Pan Ams, so you got to get the stress. So let's do it. But yeah, have a good rest of your night, man. Appreciate it,
man. Have a good night.
Yeah, see ya.